Today, a veteran teacher teaches us 5 ways to rev up our classroom. Now, it's kind of a grab bag of ideas. It starts off with a better way for kids to ask to go to the bathroom that's much less disruptive. His changing vocabulary about mistakes, a stand and talk idea, his policy on erasures and my policy on keeping a copy of things, as well as a really cool brain break called Gotcha. Enjoy.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
Today, we're talking with 32-year educator David Sladkey about hot ideas to rev up our classroom. Now, David, you have something cool that you have invented and that you're doing this year about that one thing that can sometimes drive us crazy. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, well, thanks, Vicki, for having me. When you have students come up to you and ask you to go to the bathroom, it feels like, okay, they're going to come up and ask a question and all of a sudden they say, can I go to the bathroom? It's so deflating as a teacher. So what I did is I put a whiteboard at the back of the class, and then the students are allowed to leave the classroom, but they have to sign out on the whiteboard. And it's only one student at a time. They don't have to acknowledge with me at all. And really, what's cool about this is when students did ask me before, I didn't remember that they were out there. Now I have kind of a record that they're out in the bathroom. And then when they come back, they just erase the whiteboard. And then they go back to their seat, and it's really all self-regulated. And you have that occasional student who's out in the hall a long time, but you'd have that anyway. So this has just been a great transition for me. I haven't answered that bathroom question hardly at all this year. It's really, really been fun.
And you feel like that kids are abusing it less?
I would say yes, because they know that other students are kind of waiting. It doesn't happen too much in my early of the day class periods. Around lunchtime, students they're looking back there and they're seeing if there's a name up there, and they just self-regulate. And yeah, they go quickly, and it's been really seamless. It's taken a little kind of frustration out of my classroom that I had, and I just encourage you to try it. It's really really smooth.
Well, and I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one that forgets if they've asked or not, because sometimes I think they might just go and not ask. And they're just, thinking, oh, well, she's just not going to remember anyway. But I like this because it's one at a time, and whoever's there is the one who goes. Yeah.
And the kids see the name up there, and they're just going to wait. Just think about a meeting for teachers. The teacher's just going to go. I think it gives them a little freedom, a little choice in the matter, feels a little more respectful to the kid.
So you've been going for 32 years. So this just changes things because you don't have that question, or it's just less of a problem?
I mean, and as a teacher, you're in the middle of a lecture, or you're in the middle of an activity, and a student raised their hand. You're all excited. And what do? Can I go to the bathroom? Yeah. And it's like, oh, man.
Drives you crazy. Yeah.
Drives you crazy. Yeah. And that question doesn't happen anymore.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, So something else you've talked to me about is changing in your vocabulary. Now, you teach math, and how have you changed your vocabulary?
Joe Bowler I just love Joe Bowler in math. She kind of preaches that we can make mistakes, and Carol Dweck it's the mindset, growth mindset. But I've been changing the word mistakes a little bit lately because it's harsh. On a test, we don't want students to make mistakes. And so mistakes is kind of our enemy a little bit. Even though I've tried for, past few years to really encourage that it's okay to make mistakes. But now I'm trying to use the word adjustments instead. So, for instance, if a student is bringing up some work so I could give them some feedback, I'd say, we just need to make some adjustments on here. This slope needs to be adjusted a little bit, and then you can get finished. So really, it's ultimately about you're not quite finished. You just have to make a few adjustments. There's no mistakes. It's just a work in progress. So that has been the last few months just in my vocabulary. You probably heard this a lot. It's okay to make mistakes, and I love that. But now let's just change the vocabulary a little bit and not call them mistakes, but we need to make adjustments with what you're doing.
I mean, technically it's still a mistake, but you're trying to help the kids not stop there, but just realize they've got to do a few things to kind of change things.
Correct.
And get correct. Well,
I think it puts them less on their heels. They're not like, okay, I messed up. It's more like, I have to tweak it a little bit. I have to tinker a little bit more. And then I just have to be working a little bit more to adjust what I have to get done. So.
Okay. So David, before the show, you said, when I asked you, what are you most excited about? You said stand and talk. What's that?
Sarah Vanderwerf from Minnesota, she's a coach as well, and she gave a post, and you can Google that. She gave the idea to, put up on the screen like an image or a short problem, and then have your students stand up. They don't take any paper, no pencil, nothing, and they go find somebody else in the room, and they have to be a pair. And so together, the pair discusses the image or the question, and they're going back and forth. And then I say, find a new partner, and everybody finds a new partner, and they stand with somebody else. They're talking afresh with somebody else, getting new perspectives, and then I have them go sit down. And how I, begin this activity actually is I have everybody hold their hand up, stand up, hold your hand up, and now go find somebody, give them 5. And so they're actually finding another person by giving them 5 and then starting to talk about whatever we're discussing. So I like it because, number one, it gets them out of their seat. It gets them off the pencil and paper mode just to talk. And there's they get the choice of seeing somebody they like across the room, like somebody that they know. And then it just kind of is a natural activity for getting kids up. And when you tell them to head back to their seat, it's just this natural pause after, the storm of that. And then you start discussing it more. So it really gets you into that activity quite quickly and without any threats,
Well, and you're getting their blood pressure up, their heart rate up by standing up and having those conversations. And it's, that's just, so it's really kind of think, pair, share, but on your feet. And also kids tend to not be as long-winded as adults if they stand up. Winston Churchill during World War II had standing meetings with his cabinet because he said he didn't have time to sit around and listen to people pontificate.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, but there's also something you're doing. You're encouraging your math kids not to erase. Why is that?
We put work down on a paper. Sometimes we think that work is not correct, so we erase it. And then when we go back and think about it, it actually was correct. And so what I have a student do is you're just not allowed to erase, and just put an X through whatever you did and redo. I mean, it takes less time to put a big X through it than to erase it. So just put an X through it and move on and go ahead and write out what you were writing. And especially on tests, it really is helpful on a test because I can see a student's thinking throughout the problem instead of their final work, which sometimes isn't even correct. So I could see their kind of progression of thought. And the students, I'll tell you, Vicki, there's some balking at don't erase. Some students don't like it. Some love it. They love that freedom that, okay, I don't have to make it perfect. I can just have it a kind of a rough draft. And I tell my math students, you can use pen, because if you don't like what you did, just put an X through it and go on. And I just think it liberates a student to say, okay, here's all my work. And sometimes their work was correct the first time, and then they go back and say, I got it all right there.
Well, and I teach digital film, and I've gotten to where I teach kids to duplicate their sequence, so they have their old sequence and then their new one. And because what kids were doing is they were going in, they were having a film that was pretty close, but they weren't happy with it, and they were deleting everything they had done, and then starting with nothing, and it was so demotivating. Kids weren't finishing projects. So I'm like, hey guys, save where you are, kind of have a save point, so you can go back and look at it, and then, start over, but keep a copy, I guess. So this whole a copy, I think, just makes sense.
Yeah, I like that, because I do that with Google Docs sometimes, because, it's fluid. So you can't always know, I just make a new document and have that old one, and that can be used. But yeah, that's great use of that.
Okay, so as we finish up, you've been working with brain breaks for a very, very long time, and I know that you have lots and lots of them, but do you have one favorite you can share with us as we try to rev up our classroom?
Yeah, I love gotcha. I don't know if you've ever done that one. No. Gotcha is with, it could be with 2 people. It could be with 6 people. You get a group of students together. So anywhere from 2 to 6, whatever you want. And then you make them go in a circle, and they have their left hand open, and then they have their palm up facing the ceiling, and then their right hand, they would just put their index finger, and they would point directly in the person next to them, their palm. So left hand is palm open, your right hand is a pointy into the palm of the person next to you. All right, and then you got all this?
I do. I have it in my mind.
Okay. All right. So then the teacher would say, gotcha. And at that time, a student would try to grab the person with their left hand, their finger, their classmates, and they're getting away with their right hand. So they're kind of doing 2 things at once, and it's hard to do. So it kind of stirs your brain a little bit. You're moving a little bit, and so that just kind of is one thing. And then what I do is I actually switch them. Your right hand is palm up. Your left hand is pointy. So right away they're mixed up again. And then I say, gotcha. And then lastly, I have them cross their arms right over left. Their left hand is open. Their right hand is pointy. And they have to go a little closer for that one, and then say, gotcha. And it's a lot of laughter. And as most brain breaks, you get up, you cross the midline, you're thinking about something else for just a little bit, and then you sit back down and you kind of settle in. You feel a little bit more energy than you did before the brain break.
Yeah, and just get that brain going. Well, these are some awesome ideas. You've given us at least 5, but you have lots of resources online, as well as your brain breaks information, and you blog at teachhighschoolmath.blogspot.com. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Vicki. Appreciate it.
Hey, everybody. So we will be taking a break the week of Christmas from the 10-Minute Teacher. I would encourage you to take a look at some back episodes by going to coolcatteacher.com/podcast, and you can search our whole archive. We have 595 episodes as of today, and take a look at those episodes, listen to those, and learn from them. And I would encourage you, this sort of mishmash of ideas today, I would encourage you today in your challenge to share some of your somewhat random ideas, but these little cool things that really make a difference. Share them on Twitter, share them with social media, or just jot them down somewhere and plan to share them with a friend when you return to school. I hope that this season is so restful, that it's full of joy, and that you'll remember that the greatest presents are often the presence of your family and your friends. Enjoy.